Heartwarming response. Waitress mocked in Arabic, but amazing daughter's fluent reply will Inspir. In a small, bustling diner on the edge of a sleepy town, a moment unfolded that would forever change the lives of a waitress and her daughter. It was just another ordinary Tuesday, where the clatter of plates and the sizzle of bacon danced in the air. But then, suddenly, everything shifted. A group of loud customers settled into the corner booth. They spoke in a language foreign to most, laughing and sneering at the waitress, a woman in her 40s named Fatima. They thought she couldn't understand them, but cut through the din of the diner with an intensity that grabbed everyone's attention like a whip crack, a sharp, unmistakable comment. "Look at her. She can't even speak to us." One sneered, their laughter a cold, cruel echo. But there was more beneath the surface, a current of mystery swirling in that crowded room. Fatima's daughter, Layla, a bright, clever girl of 15, was sitting at the counter, quietly observing. She was different, her eyes sparkling with secrets, and her heart drumming a familiar rhythm of dread and disbelief. What would happen if her mother heard? What would those cruel strangers do next? The tension rose like steam over a hot cup of coffee, thick and oppressive. Time seemed to slow as Layla's mind raced. She'd always idolized her mother, a woman who defaced so much in her life. Fatima had fought through hardships with dignity and grace, yet here she was, a target for mockery. It felt like a punch to Layla's gut. Would she allow this to happen? Panic streaked across her face, her trembling hands gripping the counter tightly. A wire of tension snapped as she made a decision, something in her ignited. This was her moment. Before anyone could register the shift in the air, Layla stood up, fully poised and ready. The diner was alive with chatter, but her voice, when it came, sliced through it all like a knife. She spoke in fluent Arabic, her words dancing with clarity and power. "You think she can't understand? You have no idea what strength truly looks like." The room turned silent, disbelief hanging heavy in the air. Every eye was on Layla now, their shock palpable, their smiles wiped clean. It felt like the calm before a storm. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Layla finished speaking, the atmosphere shifted again, but this time it crackled with tension, the air electric. The diners murmured among themselves, some shaking their heads, others exchanging worried glances. Moments stretched like taffy as Fatima, who had been serving at the table, paused mid-motion, her heart pounding at the sight of her daughter standing tall, fierce, and unapologetic. How would the customers respond? A knot formed in Fatima's throat, a mixture of pride and fear. But even more strange was the glimmer in Layla's eye, something powerful and unyielding. What else lay buried within? Could this moment spark an unexpected rebellion? As whispers erupted around the diner and eyes darted back and forth, an eerie hush settled over the group of mockers. Could they possibly face what was coming? The weight of the scene hung heavy, uncertain, begging the question, what would happen next in this battle for respect and dignity? The silence was deafening. Layla felt the weight of dozens of eyes pinning her in place. But she stood like a fortress, her heart thumping uncomfortably against her ribs. The laughter of the mockers had been silenced, replaced by murmurs filled with uncertainty, shock, and disbelief. One of the men at the booth shifted uncomfortably, his confidence wavering as he locked eyes with Fatima, who simply stared back, her expression a mix of worry and fierce pride. The others at the table exchanged glances, the bravado draining from their faces. Someone cleared their throat, a weak attempt to regain control of the spiraling situation. "What did you say?" one of them finally asked, irritation crackling in his tone. Layla pressed on, her words a steady stream of defiance. "You think mocking my mother is funny? You don't know her story or the struggles she's faced. She's stronger than all of you combined." Her voice resonated in the diner, growing louder and more determined with each syllable. The weight in her chest lightened as she spoke, empowered by the truth that both she and her mother embodied. The atmosphere shifted again, crackling as curiosity mingled with fear. Diners leaned closer, some inching forward to catch every word. Layla turned her attention back to the men, her gaze unwavering. What do you know about real strength? About resilience? You dismiss her, you think she can't understand you, but you couldn't be more wrong. That's enough. One of the men snapped, his face turning a deep shade of red. The anger barely masked the thin veneer of fear that clung to him, the kind that rises in the face of unexpected resistance. Fatima could feel the tremors of tension in her legs, but she resisted the urge to run to her daughter. Instead, she focused on Layla, who was transformed into a beacon of courage. Just as Layla had stepped into the fire of confrontation, she felt the flames beginning to spread through the diner, igniting conversations, evoking empathy. I'm just saying, Layla continued, voice sharp but calm. You have no idea how hard she's worked to put food on our table. You think you can belittle us just because you can't see the beauty in our difference? And then, as though someone had flicked a switch, the silence shattered. A woman at the counter, who had been watching the entire confrontation with wide eyes, chimed in. She's right. Fatima knows this diner better than any of us. She's part of our community. Another diner spoke up, backing her. Yeah, enough with the hate. It's time for respect. The tide began to turn, voices joining together, rallying in support of Fatima and Layla. The mockers at the booth shifted uneasily, their bravado now crumbling. Each shamed glance exchanged between them felt like a small victory for Layla. Yet, even among cheers, she sensed an undercurrent of rage from her adversaries. As one of the men finally made a move, leaning back, arms crossed. He sneered, "You think this is over? We'll be back." With that, he gathered his group and stormed out of the diner, leaving behind a trail of tension hanging thick in the air. The moment felt heavy, yet electric. Layla couldn't help but feel a rush of exhilaration, but also an ominous feeling creeping in. The battle might have been won, but what of the war? Fatima approached her daughter, embracing her with fierce pride, but the thrill of the moment was tainted by an unsettled fear. Are they really going to come back? Layla whispered, her voice shaking as realization set in. Fatima's brow furrowed, concern clouding her eyes. We must be ready, Layla. Whatever happens next, we will face it together. The room, once filled with applause, now buzzed with speculation and anxious glances. Could they truly protect themselves when the storm returned? Just outside, a storm was brewing, and it was much more than the weather. What came next? Would they stand together or succumb to fear? The door swung shut behind the men, leaving a gust of cold air in their wake. It felt like a warning. In the diner, the once vibrant chatter had morphed into a low, uncertain murmur. Fatima could feel heavy stares creeping over her, and Layla like a thick fog rolling in. The smiles that had ignited earlier now faded, replaced by furrowed brows and whispered fears. Did you see that? A woman at the counter gasped, clutching her coffee mug like a lifeline. Another diner replied, I can't believe they dared to speak to her like that. Layla caught snippets of conversations, the same fear rippling through the crowd. Her heart sank. For every voice of support, there were three that still echoed doubt. Fatima's hand tightened around Layla's, and she sensed the coiled tension inside her mother. We may have stood tall today, but what if they return? Layla said, her voice barely above a whisper. What if they come back with friends? We can handle it, Fatima whispered fiercely, though she couldn't shake the gnawing uncertainty. Suddenly, one of the men burst back inside, his face flushed with rage. The diner fell into a hush as he advanced toward them, the earlier cheers now replaced by fear and anticipation, the calm before the storm. Behind him, the others lurked just outside, waiting like vultures. What is it going to be? You want to stand up and make a fool of yourself again? He sneered, eyes darting around to gauge support from his pals. They didn't wait long. They slipped inside, mirroring their leader's aggression. Leave us alone, Layla shouted, spurred by indignation bubbling inside her. She had felt powerful moments prior, but now doubt threatened to choke her words. A rusty anger bubbled beneath her skin. Could it be enough? The man laughed, a chilling sound that echoed against the walls. You think you're brave? You just made our lives a lot more interesting. Fatima stepped forward, a fierce glint in her eye. You don't know what courage is. You're just hiding behind cowardice and hate. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some leaned forward. Others shrank back, as if daring to witness the unfolding showdown. You don't belong here, he yelled, the malice bleeding through every word. What are you doing in this town? Layla's chest constricted. The question wasn't just directed at them. It was a challenge, a threat that hung in the air. She could almost hear the town's heartbeat quickening, pulse racing with the realization that this confrontation could spiral into chaos. Suddenly, the anonymous woman from before rose again. They're part of our community. You need to leave. Shouts arose from the back, voices clamoring for unity, for respect. But Layla could feel the strength of the support wavering, crushed beneath the weight of opposing rage. Her mind raced. How long could they sustain this fight? In that buzzing moment, she caught a glimpse of Fatima's resolute gaze. It was like a flame igniting within her. But uncertainty clawed at her once again, the question of what they would do. The tide was turning, but could they really weather the storm? Outside, a car engine roared to life. The men exchanged glances, whispering to one another as they shifted their focus. Something clicked in Layla's mind, a visceral realization that whatever happened next would change everything. She took a deep breath, trying to quell the fear threatening to seep into her courage. We can't let them take our spirit, she declared, her voice piercing through the tumult. And just as quickly as the surge of determination filled her heart, a muffled thud against the diner door announced someone else was approaching. Was it more mockers, or something worse? Shadows began to loom just beyond the threshold, sending a fresh flush of fear through everyone. There was no turning back what awaited them at the door. Would they fight or flee? The thud echoed like a drumbeat in the heart of the diner. Tension thickened the air, muffled whispers scattered like leaves caught in a storm. Layla's pulse raced, fear coiled tightly around her chest. The door quivered slightly, as if the unseeable company on the other side were testing its strength. What was that? A trembling voice broke the heavy silence. Fatima's grip tightened, and her eyes darted toward the entrance. Stay close, she murmured. The support they found a moment before felt fragile, slipping through fingers like sand. They needed strength, but in that moment, fear sat heavy in the corners of the room. As the dull thud came again, louder this time, the air electrified. Layla's heart hammering in her ears drowned out the whisperings around her. What if it's more of them? She thought, and just then, she caught the glint of a blade reflecting from the distant streetlight. Then the door cracked open. One of the men sauntered inside, his posture full of swagger. A confident smirk crossed his lips, yet rage simmered beneath. Behind him, a group of shadows huddled, peering in like dark clouds threatening to unleash a storm. Look what we have here, he taunted, eyes glinting with malice as he scanned the crowd. The hens have all gathered, clucking away. The tension bubbled like a boiling pot, and the diners, once eager to cheer on Fatima and Layla, whispered uncertainly behind a veil of fear. Please, leave us be, Layla breathed out, desperation weaving through her words. She couldn't back down. She had to show them they wouldn't be cowed. Yet the chill in her bones warned her of what could come. Leave? Nah, I think we want to have a bit of fun. The man paced ominously, drawing closer to where Fatima and Layla stood shoulder to shoulder. What do you think? Should we give our special guests a proper welcome? At that moment, a voice emerged from the crowd, a shaky yet brave voice. They have every right to be here. You don't scare us. It was the woman from earlier. The words hung in the air, igniting a spark of hope that flickered through the crowd. Is that so? Said the man, sneering. This town is ours, and you're just visitors. Walk away quietly, or the fun will escalate. And trust me, you don't want that. Layla's heart sank. Would people just sit back and watch? The urgency built within her, a swirling mix of determination and the fear of overwhelming defeat. She turned to Fatima, eyes pleading. But her mother stood tall, a pillar of quiet strength against the tempest looming before them. Listen to me, Fatima said, addressing the crowd rather than the man. We came here seeking peace and community. You cannot take away our spirit with threats. Gasps echoed, hearts pounding in rhythm. As if answering the challenge, others began to rise, summoning voices of defiance. Layla felt the tide shifting yet again. We stand together, she shouted, her voice carrying through the tumult. Together? The man mocked. You think that's enough? This isn't a fairy tale. Before anyone could react, the door slammed open wider, revealing an officer standing there, imposing and alert. What is happening here? He demanded. Eyes narrowed at the scene unfolding. Layla's heart leaped at the sight, a glimmer of hope piercing through the heavy fog of dread. Would he protect them or add to the chaos? Officer, Fatima called out. These men, but the interruption wasn't done. The officer raised a hand, and the atmosphere shifted, suspense tight as a drawn bowstring. What if he sides with them? Layla whispered to her mother, a knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. The man stepped back, a fleeting look of surprise crossing his face. The unexpected arrival had altered the prospects. But as the officer advanced, Layla could see the ambiguity written on his face. Could he be the ally they desperately needed, or would his arrival throw everything into deeper chaos? Layla held her breath, ready to find out what fate awaited her family and their fragile community, heart racing with uncertainty. Because the next moment was about to decide everything. The officer took a step forward, his eyes scanning the room with authority. Layla held her breath, her heart pounding like a drum. This could go either way. The thin wire of tension that tethered them all could snap in an instant. What is going on here? He repeated, voice gruff and commanding. The swaggering man shrugged, his smirk falling away. Just a friendly chat, officer, he said, feigning nonchalance. Nothing for you to worry about. The tension thickened like smoke as the officer shifted his gaze to Fatima. Ma'am. Fatima straightened, all defiance and determination. These men are threatening us. They came in here unprovoked, and we really? You expect me to believe that? The officer retorted, skepticism coloring his tone. Gasps erupted around the diner. Layla felt a rush of anger surge through her veins. They wanted to scare us away. She blurted out, her voice louder than she intended. Her eyes flashed with desperation. You have to believe us. The officer's brow creased, a flicker of doubt passing over his face. He looked back at the men now gathered at the entrance, their faces a disturbing mix of arrogance and menace. The leader of the group stepped forward, puffing up his chest. We're just having a little fun at the expense of these new folks. It's nothing personal. Fun. Fatima shot back, indignance igniting in her voice. You think threatening a family is fun? This is not a game. The officer's gaze sharpened, but there was still a hint of hesitation in his demeanor. Layla's heart sank as the moment stretched, each second dripping like thick molasses. Maybe you ought to do your job and investigate rather than stand there questioning the victims. A low voice chimed in from the back, a man with weary eyes who had been silent until now. The weight of his plea hung like a challenge. But before the officer could respond, the man at the front turned in a calculated rage. You don't want to get involved, buddy. This is our town. I'll be the judge of that, the officer snapped, regaining some of his earlier authority. But Layla could see the cracks forming. The way the man's words had struck a chord. Suddenly, the diner's lights flickered, and a roar from outside rattled the windows like an angry beast. Everyone turned, eyes wide. A thudding against the pavement echoed the unmistakable sound of heavy boots marching. Layla felt a jolt of fear. Was this backup for the officer, or something much worse? Get ready, the officer warned, now on high alert. I need you to stand back. He pulled out his radio, voice tight. We have a situation. The thud drew closer, a relentless march that faded and re-emerged, pulsating with dread. In that moment, Layla's heart raced faster. Stay together, Fatima whispered, her grip like iron around Layla's hand. No matter what happens, we're in this together. But the strangers didn't appear ready to back down. The man lifted his chin defiantly, anger radiating from him. We won't let you take what's ours. Suddenly, the door behind the officer burst open. A swarm of figures poured in, uniforms flashing, bathed in an unsettling, cold light. Everyone down. A commanding voice rang out, echoing like thunder inside the diner. Layla ducked instinctively, hard in her throat. The air felt electric, screaming with imminent chaos. She looked at Fatima, their eyes wide with shared fear. What war was unfolding before them? And who would emerge victorious when the night was done? The only certainty was that the battle for their community had taken a terrifying turn, and all of them were at the heart of it. Would they find safety, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? Chaos erupted in the diner as the officer shouted commands. voices clashing, fear ricocheting off the neon walls. Layla remained low, her hands gripping the edge of the booth. She could see the newcomer's uniforms black and imposing. The figure at the front, a lanky woman with wild curls, gestured for the others to take positions. "Hold your fire," she barked, her eyes sweeping across the room like a hawk hunting in the dusk. "Identify yourselves." The swaggering man, who had moments earlier been mocking the officer, suddenly shrank in stature. "We're just having a silence." The woman interrupted. "You're in the way of an investigation." Her voice cut through the hysteria, as sharp as a knife drawn from its sheath. Layla caught a glimpse of the officer trying to regain composure. He was tossing quick glances between the yelling intruders and the crowd's frayed nerves. She could almost see the cogs turning in his mind, weighing his options in a balance turning unsteadily under pressure. Fatima pulled Layla closer, her voice barely a whisper. "We have to trust that they're here to help." But the tension in the diner thickened again. Sensing weakness, the men in the entrance exchanged looks, their bravado wavering. The leader stepped back, hands raised in a mock gesture of compliance. "We don't want any trouble," he said, though the menace lingered. The seconds stretched into a tight knot in Layla's stomach. Intuition screamed that something was brewing beyond what was visible. The woman with curly hair pressed on, her eyes fixing unflinchingly on the leader. "Then move away from those people. You're scaring them, and that's crossing a line." "What do you know about our line?" he challenged, eyes flaring. The familiar crackle of animosity ignited in the air, coursing around them, spilling into every heartbeat, every breath. The officer, fueled by newfound energy, stepped closer to the men. "I'll say this once, stand down. Nobody wants this to get ugly." His voice was firm now, though Layla observed the twitch in his cheek. Was he as confident as he tried to appear? The silence that enveloped the diner was deafening, punctuated only by the rustle of clothing and the shallow breaths of the onlookers. Fatima's face twisted from fear to fury. "This is not your town to claim. We're just trying to live without fear." Her voice pierced through the tension, resonating with a surprising clarity that in the momentary lull, a light flickered back into the diner's flickering neon glow. Shadows stretched across the linoleum floors, menacing and charged with fury and uncertainty. The tension was at its peak when Layla's eyes darted to the exit. A flash of movement outside caught her attention. "Look!" she gasped, pointing. The heavy boots marching outside had halted. Now a crowd of onlookers filled the street, eyes wide in shock, some phone cameras raised. The uniformed woman glanced back toward the door and then back at the leader. "This isn't just about you anymore. You know that, right?" A nervous chuckle erupted from one of the men in the back. "And what do you think they'll do? Film us? This is our turf." But the woman cut him off. "And every video reel is a nail in your coffin. We're all connected in ways you can't imagine." Panic flickered across the leader's face. The room pulsed with every shifting gaze, every murmur. Just then, a metallic clang echoed from outside, drowning out their tension. The door swung open again, and a new group of figures burst in more uniforms, their stance unyielding and sharp. "Everyone stay down. This is now a secure area," another commanding voice bellowed. Layla could feel it. A mighty rush trembled through her. The stakes were climbing, and her heart raced faster. Each breath she took tasted of fear and adrenaline. Just as she dared to think there might be a glimmer of hope, a loud crash thundered from the back of the diner. "What was that?" Layla gasped, eyes wide as chaos erupted anew. Fear twisted deep within her. Was that crash just the beginning? What else lay hidden in the smoke of this unfolding nightmare? The crash reverberated off the walls, sending a shockwave of dread through the diner. Layla instinctively ducked lower, her heart hammering against her ribs. The commotion drew every eye in the room, all fixated on the back where an old jukebox lay toppled, shards of glass and metal glistening under the buzzing fluorescent lights. "Stay down. Stay down," the new commanding officer shouted again. This time, his tone was a mixture of authority and urgency that pierced through the chaotic murmurs in the diner. Fatima was clutching Layla's arm so tightly it felt like a vice. "What are we going to do?" she whispered, panic streaking through her voice. "I don't know," Layla stuttered, her mind racing. She glanced around, searching for answers among the fearful faces. The waitress behind the counter stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. As the men at the entrance seemed to momentarily reconsider, the wild-haired woman shouted, "Helena, get those people out." The new officers surged forward, their presence a fierce wall against the men who had claimed dominion. Layla held her breath, watching intensifying expressions on those intruders, some shifting on their feet, while the leader clenched his fists, eyes darting between the officers and his crew. Then, in an unexpected move that tore through the mounting tension, the lanky woman stepped outside the fray, her sharp gaze catching the leaders. "This is your one chance to walk away," she declared, voice steady. "You're outmatched. Don't escalate this." "What do you know, huh?" He shot back, but the threat in his voice was less certain now. "More than you think," she retorted, challenging him. "The world is watching." At that, the diner erupted with muffled gasps and murmurs of disbelief. Phones raised higher in the crowd, capturing every moment of the standoff. Then came another rumble, a group of sirens blared in the distance. The leader looked momentarily shaken. The sirens were closing in, adding momentum to the chaos. But it was Fatima's desperate whisper that pulled Layla back into focus. "Look," she urged, pointing toward the booth across the aisle. A man had started to rise, his expression transitioning from shock to determination. "Everyone listen," he proclaimed, his voice breaking the tension. "We can't let fear take us. We stand together." A ripple of murmurs spread through the diner, tentatively building into a growing buzz of agreement. Layla felt her heart respond as the energy shifted. It was a collective realization the audience was not merely spectators, but part of something larger. "Do not let them intimidate us," the man continued, emboldened. "We can't let them claim our lives." The wild-haired woman, oblivious to the rising tide at her side, continued to try to control the scene. "Get ready to sweep the area," she instructed her officers. "We need to secure this." But the leader smirked back at her. "And what if we don't want to go? You might not be ready for what that means." Just then, the diner door burst fully open as a flash of red and blue light spilled into the room. The arrival of another group of officers surged in, creating a chaotic flurry that fanned the flames of fear once again. Layla's breath caught in her throat as the atmosphere crackled with uncertainty. Would this be the moment that everything changed? Then, the metallic clang from outside rang again, louder, even more unnerving. For what resonated after that was something else entirely, an explosion of furious energy, like the bowstring pulled too tight ready to snap. Panic locked everyone in place as pieces started to tumble down, the silence shattered, and outside, chaos took a new form. Was it too late to escape this nightmare? Or was it just the beginning of a much deeper fight? The explosion ripped through the street outside, reverberating into the diner like a visceral shockwave. Windows rattled, and the patrons screamed as the walls echoed with the horror of the moment. Layla's heart raced. Every instinct told her to flee, but her body felt frozen, as if trapped in the very fear that gripped the room. The leader of the men, eyes wide with a mix of shock and rage, whipped around to face the diner's entrance. "What did you do?" he shouted at his crew. They were no longer just goons. Now, they appeared desperate, glancing between their leader and the sirens wailing closer by the second. One of them, a stocky man with a wild look in his eyes, brandished a gun. "Get down," the commanding officer barked, urgency redoubling as patrons dove for safety. The sounds of feet shuffling and muffled cries filled Layla's ears, drowning out everything else. Fatima's grip never loosened. Her nails dug into Layla's skin. Then, that man, the one who had inspired them with his words just moments before, stood again, seemingly oblivious to the imminent danger. "Together," he shouted once more, his voice rising above the chaos. "We won't let them take our lives. We are stronger united." Layla's chest tightened. She could feel the weight of his words stirring something deep within her. But as she looked around at their cowering neighbors, the reality set in that unity could only thrive if everyone was willing to fight together. In one swift motion, the lanky woman, Helena, moved toward the counter, shouting to the waitress who still stood paralyzed, "Help us barricade the exits." Her voice sliced through the haze, forcing the waitress into action. Out of instinct, Layla turned her head to the window just in time to see shadows darting past the flashing lights outside. Were they reinforcements or something far worse? The metallic tang of fear washed over her. Fatima, she whispered, we need to move. Unlanguishing her arm from her friend's grip, Layla darted toward the back of the diner, eyes scanning for anything that could aid in their fight or escape. Was then she noticed an emergency exit that remained unnoticed by most. Over here, she shouted, beckoning Fatima and others nearby. But the adrenaline rush was intoxicating, pushing her to act. If they could pull everyone together, the leader, growing frantic, shouted to his men, this isn't the time. Regroup. But their fear turned to panic. The sirens drew nearer, rattling their cages. Yet, against the oppressive atmosphere, Layla could feel a strange energy building. The refrain "We stand together" echoed in her heart like a battle cry. Could the diner patrons turn their dread into a force strong enough to shatter the intimidation? Just as she thought they had a moment to rally, the door burst open again, and in strode a figure cloaked in shadow. A storm of ice-cold dread swept through Layla, wiping every ounce of hope from the room. Did you really think you could take a stand without a fight? The figure's voice was smooth, dangerous. The weight of every eye in the diner turned toward this new threat, electrifying the air. Fatima's grip on Layla turned desperate again. What now? She murmured, a thin veneer of panic returning. Were they truly ready to confront the darkness that had descended upon them? Or was this just the beginning of a nightmare that would swallow them whole? The figure stepped further into the dim light of the diner, its presence heavy with menace. Layla's breath hitched as she caught a glimpse of the stranger's face, a mask of calm, yet twisted in a way that sent shivers down her spine. This wasn't just intimidation, it was a message, and it silenced the panic-induced murmurs into a defeated hush. What are you waiting for? The newcomer continued, glancing back at the leader of the men, whose bravado was starting to falter. You really thought you could pull off chaos and leave without facing the consequences? The atmosphere felt electric, crackling with tension. Patrons squeezed their eyes shut, whispering prayers or imagining lethal escape routes. Layla's mind raced. They had to do something, anything, but the fear rooted her to the ground, suffocating hope in her throat. Then the shadowy figure turned, surveying the crowd with a predatory gleam in their eye. I know you're all afraid. And I know the longer you hesitate, the worse it gets. Make your choice: stand and fight, or cower and fall. Helena stepped forward, her voice shaky yet laced with defiance. What do you want? Did she even know what she was asking? Did they truly want to incite further violence? Want? The figure chuckled, a sound that chilled Layla to her core. I want to see if you're strong enough to face the demons you've unleashed. Or will your fleeting courage vanish like the billowing smoke from that lovely explosion outside? At that moment, one of the leader's men, a tall fellow with a quivering lip, began to shake. He raised his gun toward the window, finger instinctively dancing on the trigger. I can't do this. I can't go back. He was overwhelmed, surrounded by the weight of choices he never signed up for. I won't let you get away. The leader roared, pushing back against his own men, seeming more rattled than ready to attack. The tension snapped, bands of panic stretching tighter. Layla's eyes flitted back to Fatima. They had to act, but how? Confront the darkness or bow to the fear? The words ignited a flicker of determination. Was this not the very call they had felt moments earlier? Together, she shouted, not just for ourselves, but for each other. We fight for our home. Fighting is all well and good, sweetheart, the shadowed figure replied, smirking. But what is the cost of unity? You have yet to see the true nature of your resolve. A clap of thunder rumbled outside, causing a collective flinch. The sirens wailed, a cacophony of impending doom. It was a race against time, and as fear swept through the diner like wildfire, Layla's heartbeat drummed in counterpoint. Now, Helena yelled, rallying the few still standing. Grab anything that can help us. We'll block off the doors. For a heartbeat, unity sparked like a flame. A table overturned, the waitress sprang into action, flinging dishes aside to clear space. Shouts mingled with cries, yet hope battled ferocity in their midst. But the figure laughed, rich and deep, and the sound echoed dreadfully over the growing cacophony. You act like you're in control. But remember, the shadows always know where you stand. Layla caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the staff's heavy metal coffee pot, a mix of fear and determination. Could they really hold the line? As the diner's walls began to tremble under the pressure of their unrest, Layla clutched a jagged piece of broken glass, feeling the weight of responsibility settle at her feet. But would it be enough? Or would the brewing storm finally bleed into their reality, submerging them all? In that moment where courage clashed with despair, one unanswered question loomed over everything. What would it take to finally break free? The heavy air in the diner pulsed with tension, each heartbeat shaking the walls. Layla felt the jagged piece of glass clutched in her hand, a small but potent symbol of hope and defiance. The figure in the doorway, cloaked in menace, eyed them with a chilling amusement. "Make your choice," the shadowed figure taunted again, as if daring them to take a stand. The fear was suffocating, but something fierce was brewing within the crowd, set alight by Layla's rallying cry. Fatima leaned forward, determination burning in her eyes, and shouted, "Together! We won't let them destroy our home." The words reverberated through the room like a heartbeat, igniting flickers of courage in their patrons. Outside, sirens blared, the flashing lights casting erratic shadows that danced across the diner windows. The men were rattling now, glancing nervously back and forth from their leader to the incoming officers. The tension thickened further, charging every whisper and gasp in the room. "Don't let fear take control," Layla urged softly, but with a conviction that pulled the courage from the depths of her heart. "We're stronger together. Let them see we won't be silenced." The atmosphere transformed around them. Patrons who had been cowering now started moving. The waitress, once frozen, grabbed a chair, flipping it to block one of the exits. "We're not going anywhere," she cried, fierce and defiant. The diner's workers rallied too, gathering items they could use as shields. Layla's heart swelled with strength as the energy around her shifted from fear to activism. Helena, the wild-haired officer, moved closer to the front, taking charge. "We got this," she shouted. "Hold your ground." The shadowed figure's amusement faltered slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing their face as the sheer force of unity ignited in the crowd. "You think this will end well for you?" They sneered, but their voice lacked the same confidence it had moments before. "Try us," Layla shouted back, voice ringing with raw fearlessness. With a collective roar, the diner erupted into a flutter of movement. "Block the door," someone yelled, and they surged toward the front. A heavy table tipped to the side, wedging against the door. The air was filled with noise, shouts of unity rising like a swell of music, drowning out the din of animosity. The shadowed figure took a step forward, staring down at them with a twisted smile on their lips. But for the first time, it seemed as though their bravado was cracking. "This isn't a game," they snarled, though backing away a step revealed their uncertainty. Out of nowhere, one of the back windows shattered, sending glass cascading into the room. Everyone winced, the force of it like a fresh wave of adrenaline. Panic surged in again, but Fatima tightened her grip on Layla, grounding them in this storm. "We stand together," she reminded the diners. Layla felt her mother's strength ignite a spark deep within her. Moving quickly, she began helping to gather others. Perhaps the reality of being a united front could truly shift the tide. Some others rallied together, barricading the remaining exit. And then, from the depths of that heavy silence, a ripple of applause broke out in nearby diner, emboldened by the movement, began chanting respect. Respect. The words echoed off the walls, igniting the crowd. Others joined in, their voices lifting higher, forming a wall of sound that became an anthem, fear dissipating with every shout. Respect. Respect. The rhythm drummed, and slowly but surely, the tide was turning. Even the men, standing so defiantly moments before, began to look uncertain, their faces flicking from shock to discomfort as they realized the crowd was no longer afraid. "Get out," Fatima yelled, pushing through the crowd to lead the charge toward the door. "We belong here, not you." Layla grabbed her mother's hand tightly, feeling unwavering support in their shared bond. "Let us show them," she breathed, heart racing. In that moment, as the final shouts filled the diner, the officer stepped firmly forward to lead the charge. "You're under arrest for intimidation and threatening behavior. Leave now, and we won't hold this against you." The leader, blinking rapidly and backing away slowly, exchanged glances with the men flanking him. They were doubt-ridden, their previous aggression fading like a distant echo in the night. Let us go. The leader spat, teeth clenched, as they retreated from the diner in a haste, shadows fading into the night. Amid the ringing silence that followed, relief washed over the crowd. Fatima and Layla stood side by side, trembling, grinning, and still holding tight. Those around them were gripped by a sense of triumph, a community sparked to life by a moment of bravery. Then the diner's patrons erupted into cheers, laughter filling the air, lightness breaking through the remnants of tension. Layla looked up at her mother, eyes bright with pride. We did it. We stood up. Together, Fatima echoed, her voice warm and steady, wiping away the remnants of fear. The promise of hope flickered in their hearts. This had been a battle, but maybe it was the start of something much bigger. A chance to foster a community built on understanding and respect, where they wouldn't have to fear the shadows lurking beyond their doorstep. As the crowd disbanded, each person taking a moment to reconnect, Layla couldn't help but reflect. Beyond the chaos, her heart felt full. They had faced the storm, and they emerged stronger, united. Now, more than ever, she understood their collective strength. They would move forward together, a family bound by love, courage, and the belief that they could change the world, one small diner at a time. And as the last remnants of the night began to settle, Layla made a silent promise. They would face whatever came next together, firmly united in the light of their newfound hope. But before you go, don't miss out on what's next. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your thoughts matter now more than ever. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who can relate to this inspiring story. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.